Do you like to show good results from your team? Would you sometimes like to have better results? Where are you right now in creating better results with your team? Maybe you're over here. Maybe you're looking at the performance of your team and you're thinking, we have to improve that. Could it be that sometimes you're sitting in a meeting and you're looking at the plan that is being presented and you think, that is not going to work? How often have you observed your team explaining the problems that they're having and you feel the urge actually to help them and to fix them, and you really get involved and even sitting there late in the evenings or on weekends fixing what they have left behind? How often are you wondering whether you can show enough results to your managers? Maybe you're thinking that, well, this is just the way it is as being a manager. Have you given up on the thought that it could be differently? What could that look like if it was different? Let's have a look over here for a moment. And imagine a team that had the purpose and the passion in what they were doing. Just think about if this team had a secure process so that they could be successful every time they started something. And the people actually had the desire to grow and become better. What would that mean to you? And just think if at the end of the week or at the end of the month, you actually saw the progress and you could see what the people had achieved. How would you feel? Don't you think that with a team over here you could achieve much more? But what is different then between the team over here and over there? The difference between the two is the perspective of leadership. So what do I mean by the perspective of leadership? Well, over here, the perspective is about measuring the performance. Over here, the desire is to make things perfect, to create a plan that really works. And the perspective is about fixing the problems and contributing with all the knowledge and experience and the abilities to really make sure that these problems don't occur anymore. Over here, it is like the leader gets involved and is one of the team to help as much as they can. Over here, it is making sure that the results are really presented. And when this happens, when the leader becomes part of the team and with all their experience and knowledge and ability shows that the team can be better, then the leader becomes a competitor of the team. Because all of a sudden, the team members see that there is a better way of doing things, but there's already somebody who can do it in a better way. Because the leader is already the best man on the job. Which means in this situation, the team gets confused because they don't know how they can improve and how they can grow. You see, the perspective of leadership is very urgent these days because I'm quite sure that your team is also challenged in reaching goals that you have never reached. And maybe you even have an agreement around a bonus to deliver results which are higher than you delivered in the last quarter. But if the perspective of a leader is focusing on the results here, who then helps the people to be better in achieving those results? You see, the change of the perspective of leadership is so urgent, so that the leader can focus on the people who create the results and help them to be better. But this wasn't so clear for me for quite some time. In fact, if you had been with me on June 2nd in 2009, you would have found me standing in front of this beautiful hotel. I've been coming here for 2 years now, once a month, and just putting my suitcase into my trunk of my car because I'm going to drive off, and it's been an amazing journey. It feels warm, it feels satisfying, it feels comfortable, like a day in June can only be, where the sun is shining and the trees have got this green, light green, and there's even a little fountain playing in the background, and there's a light breeze bringing the voices from the reception over, voices of happiness, of achievements, of laughter. And there's even somebody coming over to me. It's Ray. Ray, he looks like Danny DeVito, just much taller, and he doesn't really have that sense of certainty in him, but he's a nice guy. And here he is. Hello, Coach Colin. I was looking for you. I wanted to come and say thank you. It was really an amazing journey. I mean, everything that you've done for us, we weren't really anticipating we could go 50% up. It was wow. Ray, that is great for you to come over and say thank you. And I really appreciate the fact that you're thanking me. But seriously, you, with your colleagues, you put in all the effort. You did all the work, and you were able to create this success journey. Just imagine, nearly 50% up. That's amazing. That is true, Colin. That is really true. But what really made this journey special for me is the fact that before we started, I actually felt I wasn't really a good manager. I wasn't really a good leader. I was criticized. I felt uncertain. In fact, I don't think my team was really following me properly. But you gave me that certainty, that belief back into me, that being a leader, that I can really learn that. And I really was able to change the perspective in what I was doing and look more around what the people are doing and how they're doing things. And that really made a big difference. And I would really want to say thank you for that. That's it. I really believe in myself now being a good leader. When somebody has a different perspective on things than you have, what do? You become curious, right? Because obviously Ray here had a different perspective of how things went and how he became a leader than I had. And I went back to understand what really happened here. And 4 years later, September 10, I'm actually looking for Ray again. And he's over here, standing, watching the boats go by on the Bund. Here he's looking over onto Pudong and look at the skylight of the different skyscrapers. And Ray, look at yourself. Look, you're custom tooling manager for Asia Pacific. Isn't that amazing? What a promotion for you. Yes, Colin, that is true. That was really quite a surprise. It really showed to me that I actually am a leader. I'm the one I wanted to be. And taking this promotion has been really quite a journey for me. But you know, one thing that has really changed my perspective here is the fact that whatever you taught me, the methods and the tools, Colin, this actually works out here in Asia as well, because after all, I am leading people, right? And people have similar ways of working and similar interests, and similar needs, and it really works well. What had really happened here? What changed the perspective? Let's have a look in detail around the perspective that Ray had now. So let's have a look. To be successful, what would you focus on? Well, typically what Ray was focusing on before, he was focusing on the performance of his people. He was focusing on the plans that the people were creating, and he was judging whether they were good plans or plans that need to be improved. He was trying to solve the problem, and he was looking to report profit. Which means he was very concerned around the results. And his change of perspective that came to him was that he was thinking more about the purpose that the people needed. And with the purpose came also then, of course, the passion and the ability to take decisions themselves. And rather than judging the plan, he was looking to see at the process that his people had to create this plan. And instead of getting involved in the problem and trying to solve the problem himself, he was now focusing in helping the people to be competent and able to solve the problem. And rather than just reporting on the profit in the end, he was much more keen to see what the progress was that the people were making. So over here, at the beginning, he was focusing on the results that his people were creating. And in the meantime, he changed his perspective and he arrived over there, where he was looking much more at the people and helping them develop their ability to create the results. And when I looked at this and studied all the notes and all the flip charts exercises and all the interviews with the people of this group of managers, then I suddenly discovered that these are actually very important elements of leadership. These are so important that I decided to call them its 4 sides of leadership. Because I discovered that if you focus more on these points, on the purpose, on the process, on the people and the progress, that's when you're focusing more on the people who are creating the results. Because the perspective of the change in leadership that Ray had gone through was not focusing on the results, but focusing on the people who were creating the results. So let's have a look at this and ask yourself, well, where do you think you stand? Are you still over here? And do you need to move further over there so that you focus more on the people who create the results? So let's have a look at what that really means in detail. That is why let's have another look in the detail of its 4 sides of leadership. Because its 4 sides of leadership, of course, starts with the purpose. And with the answer around the purpose and the discussion around the purpose, you create the idea with the people that they know what has to change and why that is important to change. It is like you're giving them the direction, like a North Star where they're supposed to be heading. And when people have this North Star, they know their own purpose. They know why they get up in the morning. And to be able to do that, what I had been coaching and training this group of managers on is communicating future goals. Because when they communicated these future goals clearly, were they able to create that idea and that agreement around what has to change and why it is important to change. And when that is in place, then of course your team is asking themselves, well, how can we do this now together? And very often this is where a disagreement comes to place, because they're not quite sure how they're going to do it and who has the best idea and how the resources should be distributed. That is why the process around creating the strategy and the process for success becomes so important, because that is where you want to start in the morning when you get up and think about, well, how are we going to do this now together? Which means that there are a number of decisions that have to be taken. And these decisions are you as a leader helping your team to decide on the present priority. And that is why I was training and coaching this group of managers to think about how they can decide the present priorities in a better way and what priorities they need to decide about. Because when that was in place, we discovered that now it's up to the people to really do things. And maybe you've noticed that this is an area where things can go south, literally speaking, because there is not enough action. People may have understood what needs to change and why it is important and how the team is going to do it, but are they really doing it? That is where the perspective of the leader turns from getting involved in the problems that the people are having and really coaching the people to act in line with the decisions that have been taken. And when that happens, then you will be able to see progress. Progress is like when you sit down and look west into the sunset in the evenings and you would like to feel that things have moved forward. You would like to feel that there are achievements. But you can only do that if you're really aware of these changes and of these achievements. That is why I was training and coaching this group of managers to follow up on past results. And when I was looking at these 4 sides of leadership, it came to me that what's really happening here is that there's these typical situations that you have as a leader when you're interacting with your team. And you need to decide whether you're interacting around the goals, whether you're interacting around a decision, whether you're interacting around the individual's ability, desire or hesitation to act, and you're interacting around the following up of the progress and the achievements. And this gives you as a leader this type of orientation so that you know, depending on which interaction you're in, you know which way to turn, whether you should be turning north or east or south or west. So this is like your success compass. This gives you that orientation when you want to change your perspective from where you are today to where you want to be in the future. You need a compass on that journey. And this is what its 4 sides of leadership offers you. This is the leader's success compass. And without this compass, sometimes you feel like you're trying to navigate in the dark, or you're trying to look for a turn that you need to take in the fog, and you don't have any sense of orientation. But with this leadership's success compass, you know exactly where to turn in which interaction with your team. And all this I was able to capture when I was researching around this journey that this group of managers had done and how they became great leaders. And I put that together in the book, Speaking the Language of Leadership, where I explain and also give examples around its 4 sides of leadership so that you can see how this leader's success compass can work for you. So let's have a look in detail what this really means now, because I would like to show you what is behind its 4 sides of leadership and how you can apply the leader's success compass for yourself. So let's take a look at one specific element here when it's about getting started in the East. Because in the East, that's when you want to have the discussion with your team to decide on the present priorities. Because if you don't do that, you don't know how you're going to start. And you know exactly as a leader that if your team doesn't know how to start, they don't start. And without any start, there is no action. Without any action, there's no progress. It is like you're listening to the music playing and you would like to dance with your wife, but you don't know which foot you're going to start with. And you're hesitating. And all of a sudden you realize that everybody else is dancing, but it's only you and your wife standing there not dancing because you haven't decided which foot you need to take first. But if you really want to be that effective leader that can lead the team to be 50% more effective, you have to change your perspective. So how can we help the team to decide how we are going to do this together in the most efficient way? Let's assume we had a whole principle, a library of models to do that, so that you could have a step-by-step approach, so that you could move from being where you are today to where you would want to be in the future. And this is what is behind its 4 sides of leadership. Because to be able to do that, there is the Global Strategy Enabler. It is that library of principles and models and methods so that you can take those steps in a guided and proven way. So let's have a look what's behind there. It would be a good idea if you wrote EAST on a piece of paper so that you can capture the steps of the Global Strategy Enabler. Because they also very much go in this type of sequence, which means that you would want to start somewhere and finish somewhere. So there's a certain hierarchy in these things. And typically when you want to define a strategy, you want to define the strategy so that you reach the goal in the end, right? And that is really where you want to start. I've seen so many strategies where they start from where you are today and they consider the resources that you have and you start planning forward. And then at the end of a certain amount of time, you reach a moment and you realize you're not going to reach the end goal. So instead, if you were planning your strategy with the end in mind, you could define the steps backwards that you need to take. That is why I coach and train my managers on an end in mind strategy planner, so that they really hit the target and at the moment in time when they need to be there. The second thing that we look into is then, well, how do we then design the resources so that we can really create a plan that gets us there? Because always consider that a strategy is the priority of the resources that you have so that you reach the target. It is not a list of actions. No, it's the priority of the resources you have so that you can reach your goal. So with an adaptive strategy creator, you will have the opportunity to balance the different resources and maybe even include resources that you hadn't been considering before so that your plan is actually successful. And part of this process, the S here, part of this process is also that you have to take a number of decisions on the way. And if you're an observing leader, then you will notice that at this point in time, taking decisions is crucial because this is really where you lose a lot of time. So that is why I have been coaching the Safe Decision Grabber, because with the Safe Decision Grabber, you can ensure that you really grab that decision and hold it tight at the moment when you need to do it. And as you know, not everybody is in the meetings when these decisions are being taken, so you also have to delegate something to team members. And that is why the transparent facts delegator will help you complete the process of the global strategy enabler. And all these things I am training and coaching my managers. And in fact, for you, I'm going to dive into one element in detail, which is the safe decision grabber. Because how many meetings have you been in when you would want to take that decision and you run out of time? Have you noticed that managers very often at the end of the meeting say, oh, we'll run out of time, I'm going to write the minutes of meeting and send it out with all the decisions? And how often have you noticed that at the end of, say, the follow-up period, like 2 weeks later, when you want to have a look at what has been achieved, how many people actually say, oh, I didn't look at it, I didn't read the email, I missed following up and completing these tasks. Can I have some more time? You see, if you want to lead your team to be more efficient, this is not where you want to be. In fact, let's imagine you were here on this beach and your idea was to bring your team together because you would want to run into the water all together with a big shout, splash around, have an early morning swim, and then perhaps go to the hotel to continue and start your off-site meeting. And in your head, you have got this wonderful sunrise at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can just feel how energizing everything would be. And everybody said the evening before, yes, that is a great idea. Let's go and do this. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning and you're arriving on the beach and it is quite empty, but there's Jim. He's just coming out of the water and he says, oh, you know, it is quite cold here in the water. I'm not quite sure whether I want to do that again. And you're thinking, but we said we would all want to do this together. That was the whole point. And by the way, where's Marcus? Oh, Marcus, he's late. He's stuck in the traffic jam. He won't make it until 15 minutes later. And Maria's over there. She's coming. But she didn't bring her swimming things. She already knew it was way too cold. And what about Stephen? Well, Stephen wasn't going to come at all. He doesn't like swimming anyway. You see, what happened now to your vision of your whole team having fun, running and shouting into the water and splashing around and having an early morning swim and feeling energized coming out? How many times have you felt that disappointment of everybody working together on a team and it's not really happening? This is what the disappointment about wanting to take decisions and failing to take decisions is really about. Because a decision is made to get closer to the goal and to be put into action as quickly as possible. Otherwise, there is no point in making decisions. So a decision is made to get closer to the goal and to be put into action as quickly as possible. So how do you operate in taking decisions? Could there be perhaps a really good and effective way to do this? That is why I teach and coach around the safe decision grabber. Because with this safe decision grabber, you have the elements in place so that you can lead that moment in your meeting to take those decisions. So let's have a look at the safe decision grabber and write GRAB on a piece of paper so that you can capture this method to run your decision meetings the next time, because you can take this away immediately and apply it like tomorrow morning. The first thing here is, where does this meeting start? How often have you noticed that the meetings start in explaining the problem? And when people explain the problem, not only do they excuse themselves, but very often they put the fault on somebody else. And if that somebody else is in the meeting, how do you think they are going to react to that? they become defensive and they try to excuse themselves in return, perhaps putting the fault back onto the other person or on a third person. And all of a sudden you have this discussion where you're losing time and you're losing your team spirit because everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else. So what if you started on a different foot? Because looking at the problem is not really going to help you in any way to get towards your goals. So if you change your perspective and started that meeting to look at what the goal really is that you're trying to achieve, not the goal of the meeting, but the goal of that month, of that period, of that quarter, wherever the next milestone is. If you started now to share the goal that you're trying to achieve and remind everybody about the goal that you're trying to achieve, their perspective changes as well. And it starts to focus on what is really important. And when they're looking at the goal, the next thing that would come into mind is to understand, well, where is everybody in relationship to where they should be? So Jim was already in the water, Stephen decided not to come, Maria was going to be late, and so on and so on. And that is reality. So let's have a look at reality. And there is no harm in being a little behind, but knowing that you're a little behind allows you then to take the next step, which is defining the actions that you're going to take to catch up. So you could do a round with your team after you have repeated the goal that you would like to achieve. You could do a round with your team and say, Stephen, where are you in relationship to your goal? Oh, you're a little ahead. Good. What are the next actions you're going to take? Fine. Maria, you're a little behind. So what actions are you going to take to catch up? So in that relationship, you can have an understanding of where they are and ideas what you can do as a team to reach the goal where you want to be. And at this point, many meetings actually stop because either they run out of time, which they lost too much about discussing the problems, but now you're going to change that because you're going to repeat the goals. But also they stop here because when everybody is repeating the actions they're going to take, and sort of there is this idea of what could be possible, very often the meeting finishes here because there is a general implicit understanding on what could be done. And at that point, how often have you then seen the meeting continue and the discussion being discussed outside at the coffee machine or the water fountain? But if you want to have an effective meeting and you want to grab that decision, there's one more step that you need to do. And this is this one down here. At this point, you might still be brainstorming around everything that you would want to do and what everybody could do, but it's not clear around the commitments that everybody needs to take. So that's why you need to go one more round with your team and listen to their buy-in on the decision. And this specifically means asking them, well, Steve, Mary, Jim, Marcus, what are you going to do now? And when they answer on that question, what they are going to do, two things happen. First of all, you can have an idea whether the actions are actually going to lead forward. You can have an idea whether your team is prepared to move forward, whether they've bought into taking actions. And the second thing, which is at least as important, is the people give their self-commitment to things that they're going to do now. And this is quite different because a self-committed action has a 3 times higher chance to get executed versus an action that you have suggested and put on to somebody or written into the minutes of meeting and sent out as an email. And that is really what you want to have. You want to have that self-commitment that people actually do things in the end. So this is the safe decision grabber. And you can use the safe decision grabber in many situations, either in a scheduled meeting where you allocate time for this, or it could be ad hoc, standing in the flip chart taking notes, or it could be even on a one-on-one where you ask, well, what is your goal that you're trying to achieve? Where are you in relationship to that goal? And what actions could you take to go to the next step? And what is it exactly you're going to do now? You see, this all of a sudden becomes a coaching method, so that you're coaching your team and your individuals to decide on their actions and actually implement these actions. And with this safe decision grabber, you can grab the decisions and keep them tight, so that the next time you follow up on the decisions that you had decided on together, they are actually being executed. And you don't need extra time to prolong and see that things get done. So the safe decision grabber is one of the many models and methods that are available in its 4 sides of leadership. I'm going to share with you an overview of its 4 sides of leadership so that you can have an idea what is really behind it. Because this principle of its 4 sides of leadership is different to other leadership trainings, because it is not about defining your personality as a leader. It is showing you how you can express yourself, how you can structure your thoughts, how you can understand the emotions that are happening in these situations you encounter as a leader, so that you can be more effective with your team. And you can learn these things as if you are speaking another language. So let's have another look. First of all, there's the North. That is where it is about being effective in communicating around the future goals. And that is why I train and coach the True North Navigator. Because with this True North Navigator, you have all the elements that you need to really ensure that everybody understands what has to change and why it is important to change it. And when they get started, of course, they would like to turn east in the morning, and that is where you'd want to help your team to decide on the present priority. That is why I coach and train people around the Global Strategy Enabler. Just like you saw right now, the Global Strategy Enabler allows you to have those steps in place so that you have a safe process around the decisions. So that everybody knows now, how are we going to do this as a team? And when you know as a team on this side what has to change, why it is important, how you as a team are going to do this, now it comes to the individual. And yes, you can use the analogy of things going south, but in principle, your perspective here is about coaching your people to act. And to be able to coach your people to act, you would want to understand, well, why do they hesitate? What is stopping them? What is holding them back? And that is why I train and coach the Motivational Map Scanner. This will give you a clear guideline how to interpret the reactions and the actions of your people, so that you can understand what you can add as a leader so that they can act more in line to the decisions that have been taken. And in the end, of course, you would want to turn west and look at the sunset, and you would want to follow up on the past achievements. And to make that really valid and valuable for everybody, that is why I coach and train the Progress and Impact Tracker, because with this Progress and Impact Tracker, you're not following up on the results, you're following up on the progress that really is meaningful for the people, so that they feel that they're having an impact and they can answer the question for themselves, well, how did I do now in moving closer towards the goals? And this, its 4 sides of leadership, is the library of those tools that I had been training this group of manager about when I wrote the book, Speaking the Language of Leadership. Because it really showed that they were able to increase the productivity of their company, which means in every department, by nearly 50%, without investing extra, without restructuring, without reorganizing, and this is a result, an improvement that you can achieve as well. Now you might be wondering, well, Colin, why are you sharing this just as it is? Why? This is course material that in some cases you might be able to buy for 3,000, 4,000 euros. But I'm giving this away to you free of charge. Because if you have bought my book, Speaking the Language of Leadership, you will have an overview of its 4 sides of leadership, and you will be looking for more tools, more methods, and more principles how you can become that effective leader like Ray became in this book. But I'm giving this away for free because I believe leadership is essential in our world. We have leaders in politics, we have leaders in business, we have leaders in charity, we have leaders in our social life around, in schools and universities, we have even leaders at home and in our families. And if these leaders became great leaders, and if they were using tools and methods like I have been training here these managers in its 4 sides of leadership, what would happen? I would have better leaders, my children would have better leaders, my grandchildren would have better leaders. You would have better leaders around you, and when we all have better leaders around us, life becomes so much more fun. Because all of a sudden we feel that there is purpose in what we're doing. There is a process so that we can be safe and successful. There are people actually helping us to become better. And there is progress to be seen based on the efforts that we're putting in every day. So that is why if you sign up with me on info@its4sides.com, you will get access to all the principles, the models, the methods, and the tools that I had been teaching this group of managers to become great leaders. And I'll just give you an overview of all these tools here in the following slide. Because when it's about the true north, every single element here has a small video so that you can understand how you can do this. Whether you want to turn east, there are these elements that I've been just sharing with you. Whether you want to turn south and be better at coaching the people to act, there are numerous principles, models, and tools that you can apply immediately so that you can become a better leader and change your perspective from the results onto helping the people to create results. And that is why even the last element, when it's about the progress and impact tracker, is so important, so that you can have the different tools and methods and possibilities so that you can follow up on the achievements that your people are doing. And if you sign up with info@its4sides.com, you will get access to this whole library of videos and a group of people who have been reading my book, Speaking the Language of Leadership, and maybe even I will offer a webinar here or there explaining and sharing some more experience around its 4 sides of leadership. Because always remember, I'm Coach Colin and I'm here to help you master your leadership.